Now it's time for us to talk about dividing numbers by 10, by 100, and 1,000. And so I want you to go ahead and write down our first problem, 2,300 divided by 10. And just like we did with the multiplication, let's break down what this number actually is. This is actually 2 thousands and 300s divided by 10. Or I could draw them with place value disk. So let's draw a circle. And what I have is I have 2 thousands. And then I have 300s. And we're going to take that and we're going to divide it by 10. Well, let's think about what happens when I divide each part by 10. If I have 100 divided by 10, well, we know that 100 divided by 10 is actually just 10. And so let me go ahead and make the 300s into 3 tens, because 100 divided by 10 is 10. Now, what happens if we have 1,000 divided by 10? Well, think about it like pieces of candy. If you had 1,000 pieces of candy and you split it equally into 10 groups, each group would have 100. 1,000 divided by 10 is 100. And so my 2,000s will now be 200s. In other words, just like when we multiplied times 10, each number added a 0, or it got larger by a place. When we divide by 10, it's actually going to get 10 times smaller. Each number will lose a 0, or it will move to the right, one place smaller in the place value chart. And so 2,000s divided by 10 becomes 200s. And 300s divided by 10 becomes 3 tens. Or we could say that 2,300 divided by 10 is 230. And we can check that. We can say, I always like to check division by multiplication because multiplication is easier. Is 230 times 10 2,300? And we know that it is. So this is the correct answer. So if we know dividing by 10 means really all we have to do is chop off a 0, then what do we think is going to happen if we multiply times 100? And let's think about that and go ahead and try a problem where we don't divide by 10, but where we divide by 100. So here we go with 2,300 divided by 100. Okay, so once again, I'm going to go ahead and draw my place value circles. And so I have 2,000s. And then I have 300s. And I'm going to divide them not by 10 this time, but by 100. Okay, and something should stand right out to us, and that is this, that 100 divided by 100 is just 1. So my 300s should be 1, right? Because any number divided by itself is 1. And then 1,000 divided by 100, well, if you had 1,000 pieces of candy and you divided it into groups where each group there were 100 equal groups, we know we'd get 10 pieces of candy in each group. 1,000 divided by 100 is 10. And so our 2,000s are now 2 tens. Now we should have probably seen this coming. We knew that when we divided by 10, we got rid of 1 0. So each place got 1 smaller. When we divide by 100, we're changing 2 places. And what we see right away is that the answer is 2 tens and 3 ones, or it's 23. In other words, to divide by 100, we could just take away 2 zeros. 2,300 divided by 100 equals 23. And let's check it. Does 23 times 100 equals 2,300? And yes, it does. So let's try one more. Next, we'll divide by 1,000 and see how that goes. Okay. This problem is 23,000 divided by 1,000. And you may have noticed that before we were doing 2,300, this is 23,000. We've kept the digits the same, but we've moved them a place to make it larger. And that's because I wanted a number large enough to divide by 1,000 and still get a whole number. And so let me go ahead and copy down my place value disk to remind us of what we're doing. 23,000 has two 10,000s. And then it has 3,000s. And we're going to divide that this time by 1,000. And you probably already recognize that 1,000 being divided by 1,000 is just going to give us 1. 1,000 divided by 1,000 is 1, because any number divided by itself is 1. And so the 3,000s should be 3 1s. And then 10,000 divided by 1,000. Well, you think about it, it's 10,000s dividing groups of 1,000. Of course, there's going to be 10 of them. And so the 10,000 divided by 1,000 gives us 10. So we actually have 2 10s. Okay, and you probably suspected this, that when we divided by 1,000, which has 3 zeros, we would take away 3 zeros from the dividend. And so 2,300 divided by 1,000, as we can see in our answer, is 23. 23 times 1,000 equals 23,000. So let's take just a minute to review all 3 problems we've worked on. Okay, so here's our problems. And we said that when you do 2,300 divided by 10, and we said that there's 1 0 in the 10, that we know the number is going to get 10 times smaller, or that 0 is going to go. And I even have a habit, and you're going to see why probably in our next video when we start multiplying different numbers by not just 10, 100, and 1,000. I actually like to, when both the dividend and the divisor end in a 0, I actually put a line through to show what I'm doing. That the answer to 2,300 divided by 10 is actually the same answer as 230 divided by 1. And we saw the answer is 230. We're just taking a 0 away when we divide by 10. And then we saw that when we divide by 100, it works the same, but there are 2 zeros in the 100, so I'll take away 2 zeros from the dividend. And once again, I actually mark through those. You notice I'm marking through the same number on both. I have 23 divided by 1, which is 23. And finally, on the bottom one, we divided by 1,000. There are 1, 2, 3 zeros, and so we will take away 3 zeros from the dividend. I mark through them all to see that this answer is actually 23 as well.